Let us understand the Bronx Zoo experiment when a man was put in a cage. Imagine visiting a zoo. You walk past animals like lions, bears, monkeys, and birds, and then you arrive at another enclosure, and inside is a human being, not an actor or a performer, but a real person like you and me, a man, a fellow member of our species. This sounds like something from the Dark Ages in Europe, or perhaps even Nazi Germany, but it happened in New York City at the Bronx Zoo in 1906. This is the disturbing story of Ota Benga, the human exhibit, and what it reveals about science, racism, and human nature. What was the world of 1906? To understand this story, we must travel back in time. In the year 1906, the world is very different. European empires dominate much of globe. Colonial powers control vast territories in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. Many Westerners believe that humanity can be divided into higher and lower races. Today, we recognize these ideas as pseudoscience and scientifically inaccurate, but at the time, they were surprisingly common. Many educated people genuinely believed that some races were more evolved than others, and this belief set the stage for one of the most shocking episodes in modern history. Who was Ota Benga? Ota Benga was a young man from what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. He belonged to a group commonly known as Mbuti people. He was not a primitive curiosity. He was a husband, a father, a hunter, a human being with his own language, culture, and life. But tragedy stuck. Violence associated with colonial exploitation devastated parts of Central Africa. Ota Benga's family was killed, his life was shattered, and eventually he came into contact with an American explorer named Samuel Phillips Werner. Werner brought Ota Benga to the United States. Initially, he was displayed at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. The fair featured numerous exhibits intended to showcase cultures from around the world. Many visitors viewed these displays as educational, but beneath the surface was a disturbing assumption that some people could be treated as specimens rather than equals. Yes, in this exhibit, a human was displayed. Ota Benga eventually returned to Africa, but he later came back to America, and then came the Bronx Zoo, where he was kept as a human exhibit in September 1906. At times, he was placed near the monkey house. Reports describe him as an attraction. Visitors came to stare. Thousands of them gathered. Newspapers covered the story. Some of them laughed, some of them pointed, some treated him as a curiosity. Imagine that for a moment. You wake up and walk outside, and crowds arrive simply to observe you as though you were an exotic animal. Imagine what that would do to your psychology. Not because of anything that you have done, but because of who you are, they are watching you. People thought that this was acceptable, but why? This is where the story becomes even more important. The problem was not one evil person or individual, the problem was an entire worldview. At the time, many people believed in a distorted interpretation of evolution. Some assumed that human groups existed on a ladder. At the top were supposedly advanced races. At the bottom were supposedly primitive races. Modern biology completely rejects this idea. All living beings or all living humans belong to the same species. No population is more evolved than another. But in 1906, these misconceptions were widespread. People did believe that different races of human beings are superior or inferior to others. The zoo exhibit reflected those beliefs. However, not everyone accepted what was happening. Many people were horrified. Particularly African American ministers and community leaders were outraged. They argued that Ota Benga is not an exhibit, he is a man, a human being. Their protests grew louder. They condemned the zoo's actions. They demanded that the exhibit be closed. And eventually, public pressure succeeded. The display ended. After leaving the zoo, Otabenga lived in the United States. Supporters helped him. He learned English. He worked. He tried to adapt, but his situation remained difficult. He longed to return to Africa, yet returning became increasingly difficult due to financial and political obstacles. He found himself trapped between two worlds, no longer at home and never fully accepted in the United States. As the years passed, Otabenga struggled with loneliness and despair. In 1916, when he was only 32 years old, he took his own life. His story ended in tragedy, but the questions it raises remain. What does this story teach us? Many people hear this story and think, how could they do that? But the more uncomfortable question is, how could so many ordinary people think that it was acceptable? The answer lies in ideas. When a society becomes convinced that some people are less human than others, almost anything can be justified. History is filled with examples of slavery, colonialism, segregation, and genocide. The first step is often the same: reduce a person to a category, dehumanize that person, and then forget their humanity. The greatest irony of all is that the science used to justify racism eventually destroyed it. Modern genetics has revealed that all humans, all Homo sapiens, are extraordinarily similar. Humans across the planet share approximately 99.9% of their DNA. The differences we notice, like skin color, facial features, or hair texture, they are tiny variations within a single species called Homo sapiens. Evolution did not create separate kinds of Homo sapiens, it just created one species of Homo sapiens. The Bronx Zoo human exhibit is not merely a strange historical curiosity, it's a warning about what happens when prejudice disguises itself as science, a warning about the danger of forgetting the humanity of others, and a reminder that the person in the cage was never an exhibit. He was Ota Benga, a man like us. And perhaps the most important lesson of this story is that the measure of a civilization is not how it treats the powerful, it is that how it treats the vulnerable. Because once we begin seeing human beings as specimens, categories, or exhibits, we risk losing something far more important than science. We risk losing our humanity. If you like this video, please share it as much as possible and do subscribe to Nerdvana. Thank you so much for listening.